All right, what's up, everyone? My name's Shay Croy, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about some physical training concepts. And I've been a personal trainer for about 6 years now, helping other people lose weight, move better, and get lean. And I've been training myself since I was about 12, 13. I'm 28 now, so I've spent quite a bit of time going through all of the issues that your average person starting training goes through. And instead of hopping from program to program, exercise to exercise, trying to figure out what is wrong, I think it can be more helpful to understand the why behind a lot of the training issues. So in this video, I wanted to talk about one of the major reasons why everyone is constantly in and out of the gym, yo-yo dieting, starting and stopping constantly. And a lot of it is due to their inability for their body to be resilient through the training that they're doing. And so I wanted to break that down a little bit and shine some light on what you can do and how you can change your training so you don't end up being one of those people. Because after working at a gym for, 4 years at one gym, 2 years at another, it is very rare that you see people past the age of 45, 50 that are in the gym still moving. You'll get a lot of those bodybuilder types. They might exteriorly look muscular, but when you actually see them move and lift, you realize that they're probably having pinched shoulders and pinched hips, ankle issues, can't twist well, have no overhead mobility, etc. And these are actually the things that are going to lead you to breaking down and getting injured just in your daily life, and that is going to take you away from the gym. So to break it down and make it easy, the average American works a 9-to-5 job, and they're in a desk for most of that time. So what problems this breeds is you're moving in a very linear fashion throughout the entire day. You get up out of your chair, you get down in your chair, you walk forward, you walk backwards, etc. And this is the average person's movement throughout the whole day. So this becomes their basis. And so if someone is spending a lot of time in these postures throughout the day, if you're in a sitting position, then that means your hip flexors are going to be in a very tight position, so they're constantly going to shorten. Your core is very shortened, your shoulders are rolled in, and your thumbs typically are turned in if you're typing, and that's going to make the bicep tendon tighter as well. So that's when you're going to start getting these wonky, clicking shoulders when you go into the weight room to try to address these issues. And your average bodybuilding program, which is what 90% of people that go to the gym end up doing, whether you get it from bodybuilding.com or you're just Googling things, or YouTube it, etc., is that when you go into these programs and you don't have the basis, the nuts and bolts, the requisite mobility and strength and muscle contraction and core stability, all these issues, if they're not addressed because of what you do on a day-to-day basis, meaning you're just sedentary and sitting down, so you're going to have all those issues that I mentioned before. But then what's going to happen is you're going to take that body into an activity which is lifting in a bodybuilding style, for this example. So if you have tight hip flexors, tight core, can't feel your muscles contracting well, then you go and try to do these full body movements that require full mobility, you can actually feel your muscles working, etc. That is when the injury is going to come into play. Because if you have rolled forward shoulders, you can't feel your chest working, you have clicking anytime you go overhead, you have tight rotator cuffs, etc. And then you jam yourself into bench press, that is going to have a negative impact on you over time. And that is not because the bench press is bad. I don't believe in good or bad exercises, but I do believe that if you're not ready for them, it doesn't matter what technique you use, it's just a matter of time before you're going to get hurt. And I've been lifting for 16, 15 years by now, and so this is from my experience. I'm not telling you how to live, I'm just trying to shine some light on why you might constantly be getting hurt, even though you have good technique, you're not being stupid, you're not trying to 1-rep max every single day, right? But and I've talked about this with a lot of my clients, is one of their biggest fears is that if they stop lifting that way, they're going to lose muscle and they feel like their work that they've put in is going to be gone, and like they've lost time. And I went through this as well. There was a time in college, I was really big into bodybuilding and then weightlifting, powerlifting style after that. But because I never addressed my mobility or my core issues, and I was like, I look good, so there can't be anything wrong, right? I was very naive, even though I had all these sports injuries in the past that never fully got rehabilitated. So I took a broken foundation into activities that require me to have a stable foundation. And the only outcome of that, even though it takes a long time because your body is a compensating machine, it's honestly incredible, because I had zero hip mobility and somehow my body was still able to squat fairly decent numbers without me getting injured. But what happened was, over time, the heavier I got, the more, I could feel my IT band really start to tighten up, and I was kind of scared that it was going to tear if I kept going. And I was like, gosh, what's going on here? I'm strong, I look good, I'm athletic, what's the issue? But because I didn't know how to train, I didn't know how to start from scratch and start to build that mobility, build that core strength, and actually feel my muscles working, the more I was susceptible to injury. And I don't really see this stuff getting talked about in a lot of fitness circles. It's pretty much based on how much muscle can I put on in the shortest amount of time. But the only issue is that has consequences, because if you don't, it's like trying to learn a fancy layup before you can learn how to dribble the ball. Like it makes absolutely no sense when you think about it. So this is what I get people to learn when they start training with me, is that, all right, you might think you're strong in this context of powerlifting, squat, bench, deadlift, but that doesn't actually translate to feeling good in real life or feeling, better in your own body in real life. So most people are constantly going on, oh, if I look good, I'm good. And that's what they base their training around. And that's just not a very well-rounded way to train. If you can't do a back bend, you're not going to have full shoulder mobility. If you can't do a handstand push-up, you're not going to have full overhead shoulder mobility. If you sit like this all day and then you try to go into a military press, of course you're going to hurt your shoulder, because even with no weight added, your body can't even get into the proper position. So then people are adding weight, overloading it, even though they can't control their own body weight yet. And it's like, of course you're going to get injured. But when you've never had someone to really break it down and get to the why behind it, it can seem very mystical. Or you can get in your head and think, oh, I'm the only one dealing with this. What's wrong with my body? Why am I breaking down? Etc. And so I would invite you to get out of that kind of mainstream way of looking at your fitness, because that's honestly what is hurting your results the most. And once I started to take a step back and actually, do things that I thought I mastered a long time ago, like I realized my core strength, even though I had a six-pack and I felt like I'd done regular ab exercises, that wasn't actually moving the needle for me in my mobility. And then when I started to implement a hollow hold, hollow rocks, V-ups, different types of exercises that require to have full range of motion, that will actually increase your range of motion the more you do them and the stronger that you get, then things started to pay off for me and I really started to move better. And it's always good to have some sort of activity beyond the weight room that you can test yourself in, because otherwise you can get very narrow-minded in thinking, or you start to think you're way farther ahead than you actually are. So what this started to be for me was like martial arts, boxing, anything that requires a movement in a non-linear form. So pretty much every single movement in bodybuilding or powerlifting is in a very linear movement. I go up, I go down, I push it forward, I bring it back. And that's totally fine when your only goal is to build muscle. But once you take that body into the real world, or an activity like martial arts or boxing, something that requires a lot of twisting and you're taking on impact, right? The amount of bodybuilders that I've known that go try to hit the heavy bag one day and they train their biceps, 2-3 times a week, hard, heavy weights. They go in because they don't have any muscle connection from their fingers to their shoulders to their chest. They go in there and try to throw a really hard shot, and boom, their bicep tendon tears. And this has happened to close people I know. If you look in any bodybuilding circle or powerlifting circle, you can, the amount of people that tear their bicep or chest doing a bench press or something like that, it's crazy. So I actually think that strength, a better indicator of strength, so to speak, is your ability to be resilient. If I were to take my bodybuilding body and go into basketball, I'm going to end up with all these little nagging injuries because I'm not training laterally, I'm not twisting, I'm not jumping, I'm not absorbing my own body weight when I land. There's a lot of things that get neglected and left out. And if you don't switch mindsets from, okay, the only way that I'm training myself is by adding weights, in a weight room, but I haven't mastered my own body weight yet, there is no other choice but to have injuries. So if you haven't advanced your push-up, your front lever, your planche, all these things that require you to master your whole body, then you will be susceptible to injury. And just to reinforce this a little farther, even if you're doing a compound lift like a deadlift, a squat, because you're hooked into a range of motion, and because of that barbell on your back, you can only go down, you can only come up, but because your body's so good at compensating, you can kind of muscle your way through your weaknesses to a certain extent. And that always works until it doesn't anymore, or until you get injured, and that's what started to happen to me. So by regressing everything, realizing that, okay, I have to go back, even though I view myself as an advanced lifter, I have to go back and really do the basics again, because if you don't master those, you are going to get hurt, and then you're going to be the person that is constantly on and off, constantly losing weight and gaining it back, constantly being that person, I got to get back on the horse, because you don't know how to make yourself injury resilient. And that is because you're falling into the mainstream paradigm of the only way to train your body is in a weight room, basically by isolation exercises and compound barbell movements. But if you are doing a front lever on the pull-up bar, that is going to require a tremendous amount of core strength, back strength, stability, straight arm strength, all of these things that don't get trained in the weight room. And if you can master that skill and work up to that skill where you can hang from a bar and be completely horizontal or completely sideways, like engaging your core and back and everything like that, I know that person that has built that strength will not have lower back pain. Why? Because their core is advanced to a certain level that their lower back is not going to have to compensate anymore. But if someone is constantly deadlifting and they haven't built any core strength, they're still going to be able to work themselves up to pretty decent barbell lifts. But once again, that always works until it doesn't anymore. And then you're going to have to take off, and you're probably, if you haven't changed, you're going to come back to the same exercise that hurt you and try to do it again, get frustrated that you can't hit the same numbers, and then you're either going to quit or lose all your progress, etc., etc. So yeah, just a quick recap. You can't build, even if you're strong in the weight room, if you haven't done the necessary core work, flexibility work, mobility work, to where you can go into other activities and be injury resilient. So most bodybuilders can't go out and run. They're going to have all these issues because their hip mobility is crap, their stability in their knees is crap, their ankles are super immobile, and then they're going to try to take that broken foundation out and run. And because they think they're strong in the weight room, they think they're going to be a strong runner, and that's just never the case, because running will expose all of your weak links, because it starts from the feet and travels up to the hips, core, and everything has to work together. And when you haven't been working your body as one in the weight room, you're going to get exposed when you do these full body activities. That's why someone goes out to run or jump or sprint for the first time and they tear their hamstring, or they do something crazy like that, or they've been lifting for 10 years, they go try to hit a heavy bag and then they tear their bicep off. That's a huge issue. That means there's a glaring weakness in your training, And the reason it isn't addressed is because you don't have that mind muscle connection. You have not built the mobility and the strength in the proper areas that are neglected in the weight room. So yeah, I hope that kind of pieced some things together for you. And like I've said, this is all from my experience as well. And it's a lot easier for me to relate to people that have been injured, that are constantly still focused in that weightlifting mindset. And so they can actually break out of that and start over from the basics. And so they can make themselves injury resilient, so that the weight room can actually translate to what they want to do. Because if you love training and that's all you like to do, that's one thing. But most people like to train for another purpose, whether that is, I want to be healthy when I'm older, or I want to be able to do martial arts, I want to be able to run a marathon, I want to do whatever it is. But if you're training in that way that is not aligned with that goal, not aligned with being injury resilient and being able to move and feel good on a day-to-day basis, you're not actually moving towards that goal. You're actually moving farther away from it and closer towards frustration, time off, losing your results, etc. So yeah, I hope that pieced together some issues you might have been going through. Feel free to leave a comment if anything in this video related to you.